Good morning, everybody. It's Wacky Wednesday, and one of the wacky cars kind of built was when Ford started turbocharging the Mustangs. Good morning, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas. Now, many people think the first Mustang turbo car was the SVO. Well, not so. Actually, in 1983, Ford decided to turbocharge the Mustang GT. Now, not the V8 Mustang GT. This was the first attempt at turbocharging for Ford on the Mustang, and they chose the four-cylinder. Why? Well, technology already existed. They were already using this in Europe, so bringing it to the U.S. was pretty simple. Now, they put it in a GT body, so you can get the hatchback or you can get the convertible. The problem was it wasn't really that fast. Now, it had the advertised horsepower of a Camaro of the same era, V8, but it still wasn't as quick. It did run the quarter mile in 14 seconds. It went 0 to 60 in just under 10 seconds. But it was a Mustang GT. And when people think of Mustang GTs, they think of horsepower and V8s. And the Mustang GT with a V8 was quicker and less expensive. So 1982 Mustang turbos, very, very rare. And there's a reason. No one wanted to buy them. As a matter of fact, I don't even remember if it was sold here in California. It may have been a 49-state vehicle, but I'm not sure of that either. So I've looked it up, and it doesn't say. That's one of the things they miss. So let's move over to the better Mustang turbo car, and that was the car they decided to call the SVO. So we're going to move away from the information I have on the standard Mustang GT turbo. And you know what? The other problem was it cost more than the V8 Mustang GT in 1982. That's right, $250 more. And the V8s were faster, more plentiful, easier to work on, less expensive to maintain. So, according to the records I've seen, in 1983, only 483 turbo GTs were sold. So if you're looking for a rare Mustang, that's a rare Mustang for you. Now, Special Vehicle Operations, or SVO, in 1984 took the turbo back into production, but this time with a special edition vehicle that was completely unique from the GT. It had more horsepower as well, and it had better interior, better styling, better handling than the GT. It had all-wheel disc brakes, four-wheel disc brakes. Mustang GT did not get four-wheel disc brakes. It had vented rotors. It had a better suspension. It had Recaro bucket seats. Those weren't available on the regular Mustang GTs. So let's take a look at the SVO. Now, the SVO also had a short life. Although turbocharging now is relatively commonplace. Good morning, John Gilbert. But it wasn't really as popular. Now, the reason for going to the turbochargers in the first place was to get horsepower. Horsepower is good. Well, for us, it's good. Fuel mileage was good. They were capable of averaging 25 miles per gallon. Now, the SVO came out with a little bit more punch. It had an intercooler. It had the turbocharged 2.3-liter Lima-built motor, which is the same one used in the Merkur STI. A Sierra in Europe. Now, in Europe, it had a little bit more punch. It got a twin overhead cam motor. But they also had the turbo Lima motor as well. We got that version of it. Now, that is an excellent car. And you can find one of those for less than $4,000 in very good condition. Finding a Mustang SVO at that price, good luck. I've been searching this morning because I kind of like the car. I like the hood scoop. I like the 85.5 and 86 with the slanted headlights, the headlights that actually flushed out the front of the car. It got a different hood. It got different wheels. It got 5-lug wheels, whereas the GT still had 4-lug wheels. It was an interesting car, and it was as quick as the V8 in those years. But it was expensive. It was expensive to maintain. You had 4-wheel disc brakes. All right, disc brakes are easier to work on. But it was a little bit more finicky. It had different suspension. and that made the maintenance on the suspension a little bit more expensive if you had to change ball joints and things of that nature. It used the basic same construction. It had Coney adjustable shock absorbers right from the factory. Now, whereas the Mustang GT had a single solid bar for traction in the back, the SVO used dual shock absorbers, not only to stop up and down motion, but forward and back motion as well, keeping the axle from tramping or bouncing when you were on hard acceleration. And unlike a regular traction bar, it didn't go direct and wasn't as solid, but it worked just as well, if not better, with the dual shocks. And it was a little bit better on ride and handling. Now, it did suffer from pre-production issues. Now, the Mustang GT turbo car, that kind of put a damper on the SVO. Although the magazines raved about the SVO, it handled better, lighter weight over the front wheels. It was lighter. It ran the quarter mile in pretty close to what the V8s were. You got to remember, in 1984, when this came out, the V8 was still just over 200 horsepower. The SVO was at 200 in 1985 and a half. So the V8 and the four-cylinder were pretty closely matched horsepower-wise. The better interior, better gauge panel, Hurst shifter, standard leather or vinyl or cloth seating, again Recaros, better looking exterior as far as I'm concerned. I like that spoiler in the back, and I like the hood that came down forward and the flush mounted headlights. Regular Mustang's got a similar situation later on, but SVO came out with it first. Now, the first time they tried to do a turbo was 1981, as we talked, and they decided to do it. Didn't really work all that well. The Mustang GT didn't work with a turbo and a four-cylinder, because when you bought a GT, you wanted the V8, and that's what it was all about. So the SVO department was brought about, and SVO stood for Special Vehicle Operations Department, and this was the name given to their racing division. They supported the racers as well. Now, still ultimately concerned with issues such as fuel consumption and emissions, the SVO engineers opted to pass on turbocharging a V8 back then. They decided to stick with the four-cylinder. Now, they went with a stronger version of the 2.3. It had forged pistons. It had a lot better stuff. It was the same engine you could get in the turbo Thunderbird Coupe. And the Thunderbird Coupe was putting out about the same performance. Hi, Gene. How are you doing today? Sue Hilton Geisen, how are you doing? I'm going to be down in your area this weekend for the Dr. George Car Show down at Indian Wells at the tennis courts there. 1,000 cars already pre-entered. And Mark McGeorge is saying, what about the McLaren two-seat Mustang? Yeah, that was an interesting exercise in styling. Didn't go over real well. It was pretty expensive. Now, the Mustang SVO, to help it, gave you a choice of performance or reduced performance. Let's put it that way. You could use a switch on the dash to change it from premium to regular fuel. Yeah, that's right. You had a choice. If you didn't want to use premium fuel, there was no knock sensor in the car built into the fuel injection system, so you could manually adjust it. Good, Sue. Hope to see you there. So that's one thing. Now, it didn't get the Aero headlights initially because the feds didn't approve them. For some reason, they didn't think they were good enough. So it took until 1985 for those to come out, and in 85 and a half, a whole new headlight system was put on the Mustangs. It was flush-mounted, looked a lot better. And in 85 and a half, they also had more horsepower for some reason. Now, no one's telling me why, and I can't see why, but 205 horsepower in the 85.5, but the 86, which was basically a carryover, was only rated at 200 horsepower. The torque ratings were equally different. Now, one of the things that changed, too, is initially they came out with a different ratio differential in them. The first one, not quite as quick off the line, so they switched to the 373 with the Borg-Warner T10 or T5 transmission. They improved it. So the horsepower in 1984 was 175 with 210 foot-pounds of torque. That engine carried over through 1985, 84, and 85. Mid-year in 1985, it was bumped up to 205 horsepower and 248 foot-pounds of torque. That's a 38 foot-pound of torque change, and that you could feel in the seat of your pants. But 86 They dropped it down to 200 horsepower and lost 8 foot-pounds of torque. Now, it's the 85.5 and 86 are both rated at 3,200 RPM, whereas the 84 and 5 are rated at 3,000 RPM. So could it just be a situation of where the RPMs were? You don't know. Chevrolet pulled a little trick like that on the original Z28s. When the original Z28s came out, they wanted to keep the insurance lower. So they rated the horsepower at 5,000 RPM, and it was 290 horsepower, not upstaging the 295 horsepower 350 of the day. But the reality was that engine would rev to 7,000, and at 6,500 RPM, the Z28s had over 400 horsepower. So this could be a trick by Ford to try and keep the insurance down on the four-cylinder because the insurance company said, Turbo, oh. All right, I found the information. Initially, the first gear ratio in the rear was 345 to 1. Now, I could see that delivering a little bit better fuel economy. They went to a 373 to 1 later on. They both used the 7.5-inch axles. The other thing about the SVO was a 15 to 1 steering ratio. Now, the regular was 16 to 1, so it's a little bit quicker. It got the four-wheel ventilated disc brakes. Now, they were sourced from the Continental. Interesting. So you went to the parts bin, you got the Continental pieces, and you put it on a Mustang. Cheap, interesting, easy, and I like the way Ford would capitalize on in the box or on the shelf parts. Terry Wallace says, they were nice. We surprised a lot of guys when my buddy got one. Yeah, they were surprising because you looked at it didn't say Mustang GT, it said SVO. No indication as to what it was, but because of the lighter weight and the horsepower, 200 horsepower, wasn't that much less than a V8, but it weighed less, and it could accelerate rapidly, especially with that 373 rear gear. They had 16-inch aluminum wheels, and they came with gator back Goodyear tires. This was initially the tire they wanted to go to. First, the German Goodyear NCT tire was on there because that was what was available in the quantities they needed. And as I said, it had quad shocks to the rear end. The 84 used a solid steel traction bar with a rubber cover on it. I don't know why they had a rubber cover on it. A condom? But the 85s, 6, and 85, 85 and a half, and 86, which are the only years of the SVO, it had 4 shock absorbers, all Coney. The interior was available in charcoal gray. That's it. No other color. Charcoal gray. Leather or cloth. And I've seen the leather. They don't wear too well. American leather just didn't seem to work. Leather wrap steering wheel, shift lever, and again, a Hurst shifter. It came with automatic door locks, power windows, air conditioning, and a premium stereo. Options not found on small American coupes at the time. However, there was an optional competition prep package deleted many of those weight saving. So there was a competition package you could get for the SVO, and that eliminated the air conditioning and the power windows. So if you find one without power windows and without factory air conditioning, chances are it's got the competition prep package, which could make the car a little bit quicker. A little bit tough to drive in the summertime, though. The exterior had a unique front grille hood that was only used on the SVO line. Thinner side moldings, smoother sail panels behind the rear quarter windows, small rear spats to keep the dirt and mud and such from splashing up on the body. The biplane, the double wing rear spoiler had Trent, how are you doing? And Randy Emery. Sue Mullen, how are you today, Sue? Hope all is well. How's old grandkids doing? Don Gady's watching as well right now. Kim, I think, is going to be on in just a little bit, Don. So the SVO was an interesting vehicle. It was a nice vehicle, and they are starting to climb in value. Checking some today, they range from a low of about $7,000 in condition to a high of over $25,000 to one in excellent condition. Now, I've thought about the Mustang SVO as a daily driver vehicle with a 4-cylinder to get about 30 miles per gallon on the highway, which is about what I need for the type of driving I do. But at that price, yeah, buys a lot of gas to have a car that costs a lot less, and I won't have to spend the extra money on the car. But the SVO is an interesting car. I've liked it since it came out. I got to drive one when they first came out and was really impressed with how solid and smooth the car ran. Is it a good choice? Yeah, it's a good choice. If you're looking for a rare Mustang, as I said, there were less than 3,000 of these made during their production run. The Mustang GT Turbo would be even lower numbers, like I said, less than 250 of those made, but not quite as good a vehicle as the SVO. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got Gas, the morning edition. I'm headed out to the South Bay Mustang Club a little bit later this afternoon to talk with those gentle people about their Mustangs, about car shows, about hot rodding in general. So I'll be down there at their meeting this evening in the South Bay. If you'd like to stop by, check out their website. They meet at the Sizzlers in Torrance is where I got to go. Hi, Jeff. How are you doing this morning? Now, the other thing coming up this weekend is the Dr. George Show. Now, for those of you in the LA area, not the Dr. George that was the weatherman on TV. This Dr. George was an oncologist out of the Palm Springs, Palm Desert area. He made sure that people who needed to be treated for cancer got treated. He created a foundation, and it wasn't dependent on how much money you had. If you didn't have the money for treatment, you still got treatment. Dr. George was killed in a traffic accident a number of years ago, and the Palm Springs Cruising Association picked up his cause and puts on an annual car show down there in Palm Springs, Palm Desert area. Actually, it's going to be in Indian Wells at the Tennis Center, which is the huge tennis court, beautiful facility. The cars are going to be on the grass. It is locked in right now. They have no more room. They sold out at 1,000 cars, and it is an amazing car show. Now, Randy Kerdoon from KNX 1070 and our company, Two Tired Guys, or our production group, Two Tired Guys, will be down there, and we're going to be interviewing Peter Brock, the man known for the Cobra Coupe. But did you know he also was the man that penned the 1963 Corvette Stingrays? Yeah. Now, Larry Shinoda got the final nod on the final drawings, but it was Pete's design that was the one accepted as the concept for the 1963 Corvette. Pete will be down there. He was the designer of the Ford, the Cobra Coupe, which all the aerodynamicists of the time and the brain trust at Ford said would not work. It ended up beating the Ford GTs. It ended up beating the Ferraris. It was the first American manufactured vehicle, and that's questionable, to beat Ferrari at their own game at Le Mans. It wasn't the Ford GT. It was the Cobra Coupe, and it beat Ferrari first. As a matter of fact, it was so quick, that's one of the reasons Ford had to drop it, or Shelby had to drop it, because Ford kind of made him. And that put Alan Grant, who's also going to be there on the panel, and Pete Brock out of work, because they were specifically assigned to the Cobra Coupe. Now, Alan Grant, who's also going to be on the panel, was an amazing racer in his own right. Had his own personal Cobra and beat the Cobra team. That's right. He beat the factory Cobras and got hired by Shelby. His crew chief? Some guy that had something to do with the Star Wars movie. Yep, that's right. He was the crew chief for Alan Grant. They were college buddies. Now, Alan went on to stay with Shelby for a number of years, worked on the GT40 project with Lola in Great Britain when he was just a youngster. He also owns the prototype Lola GT. They wanted it out of the shop. He bought it, and he's got it. Now, he brought it out last year. It's beautifully restored. You got a 302 Ford V8 in it. It's an amazing car. I've got the model. I'm bringing it down. I'm going to get him to sign it because it's just flat cool. Now, also on the panel with us is going to be Jim Mcgee. Jim Mcgee was one of the winningest crew chiefs at Indianapolis with the front motored cars. He was a chassis builder, but couldn't keep up with the production motors or production chassis, so became a crew chief, but he had his own cars on his own. He's going to be down there as well. We'll have Peter Brock, Alan Grant, and Jim Mcgee on the discussion panel at the Dr. George Show at Indian Wells at the Tennis Center. We're going to be down there Saturday. Please join us. It's a great show. All the proceeds going to charity put on by the Palm Springs Cruising Association. Randy Kerdoon and I will be down there. Hope to meet and greet with you. We've got seating for about 50, 60 people at the bench racing sessions. The panel will be fun to talk with. You get to ask these guys questions. Peter Brock, Alan Grant, and Jim Mcgee, along with Randy Kerdoon and me, Hot Rod Bob, at the Dr. George Show this Saturday down at the Indian Wells Tennis Center, Palm Springs Cruising Association annual car show. And don't forget, tomorrow night, Irwindale Drag Strip, we're going to be racing. Come on out, and we're getting ready for Match Race Madness on February 22nd. That's going to be a great, fun event as well. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas, the morning edition. Brought to you by Valley Head Service, Irwindale Speedway, Irwindale Drag Strip, BUA Underwriting, Moon Eyes, Tucker Tire, and more. And don't forget, next Tuesday, it's Tuesday night under the lights in studio for the evening edition of Gas. And joining us, as hopefully a regular, is going to be the wild and crazy Joe Walla. Yeah, that's right. He's going to bring his race reports to Gas. So we're going to cover a lot of things, and we've got a young lady that we're going to be talking to, as well as the Nitro guys that Joe's going to bring on, that is a top SCCA racer and won the Mazda series. Youngster. Started racing at 4 years old. We'll be talking to her. We'll let you know more about that as we get closer to the show. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got Gas, the morning edition. I hope you have a great day. Hi, Cheryl Glenn, Ed Goodrich, Robert Peterson. Thank you for tuning in. Dar, how are you doing today? Marcia Hill, Lyle, Jeff, Dave Hoover. I'm going to go back and see who was the... And Gene, how are you doing? Yeah, going to snow there in Great Britain, I guess. Gino Furiani, all the way from Boise, Idaho. Brian Dufer. Sharon Frost. Marlon Mitchell. Hi, Marlon. Hey, Marlon, look, I got my Ford shirt on. I'm going to a Ford Club meeting tonight, a Mustang Club. I can't wear my Corvette shirt. I don't think that'd go over real well. Jeff Meyer, Patty, Don Gady, Sue Mullen, Randy Emery, Trent Stevens, Jerry Wallace, Mark McGeorge. Had a 79 pace car Mustang that was a turbo four-cylinder. Yeah, it could have been. Gene Cleon Short. And a host of others watching today. Thanks for tuning in. Check out our new page. It's Two Tired Guys. T-O-O, Tired Guys. Check out our new page with Randy Kerdoon and I. We're the Two Tired Guys. Take care now and watch our show, GAAS-Great American Auto Scene, in the evenings and 11 a.m. every morning, and listen to Talking About Cars at radio.com and on KNX 1070 radio here in the LA area. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and again, you've got Gas, the morning edition. Have a great day.